Hello everyone, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are continuing our Down the Line series. This is obviously going down the new German Panzerschiff heavier cruiser line. This is the tier 9 in the line, the Manteuffel. The Manteuffel, in my opinion, guys, was a little bit of a mixed bag. When I first got this ship, I thought this thing was going to be amazing, and I built her the way I wanted to build her, and I quickly found out that I was really struggling to get the most out of her. And I didn't know what this was. I played this around 10 games, same build, same everything, and I still wasn't getting the results that I wanted. Even when I was top tier, I was doing good, but I was getting focused down. I was dying way too early, and I eventually came back to the drawing board and said, what am I doing wrong? I looked over my gameplay footage, and I wasn't being too aggressive, though there were a couple that I was way too aggressive on, which again, I've always told you in regards of this line, you can't be too aggressive too early on, or you will get focused down and killed very quickly. But what I actually realized was it was actually my build and the way the ship was handling, which was inhibiting the way I wanted to play the ship. Now, I'm obviously going to get more into that the further along I go in this video when I showcase my upgrades and my captain build. But just know that I had to alter my upgrades slightly in order to free up some captain points to put them to where I wanted to put them in order to get both problems resolved. And the both problems that I found with this ship in particular was I was invested too much in concealment and not enough into my maneuverability and handling of this ship. At the end of the day, guys, you are still just only a cruiser, okay? And I understand cruisers come in all different shapes, sizes, and play styles, all right? Like if we say we're just only a cruiser to a Petropavlovsk, well, a lot of battleship players would laugh as their AP shells ricochet nonstop or miss the ship entirely because of how low it sits in the water, or because the fact that the Petro can citadel them, all right? But then again, that same distinction can apply to insert another heavy cruiser line. Sadly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Hindenburg, it's not really Battleship Hindenburg anymore, eats a lot of damage if you don't angle appropriately or pick your targets, that kind of stuff, right? Pick your engagements, I mean. So what I'm trying to say in regards of this is you can't sit there and just think you're going to shrug off enemy shells. The Schlieffen can do that to some degree. The Preußen can do that to some degree, but not the Manteuffel. The Manteuffel and this line in general, I have found that the best way to mitigate damage is by dodging the vast majority of overmatching shells. And this rule applies and is applicable to all cruisers, which is kind of sad. I definitely brings a tear to my eye because you see definitely like a lot of lighter cruiser lines that actually get punished for angling. Because it increases their armor threshold, which gives the AP shell enough time to fuse and detonate within the ship, causing that massive damage. Whereas if they just sit flat broadside, that heavy, large AP shell will just go right through their ship and get nothing but overpent. Incredibly frustrating, and I totally understand coming from a battleship's perspective on that. I agree, if a ship is caught broadside, you should be able to 100% punish the vessel. But in return, I believe that if a cruiser is angled and does everything in its possible, like everything in its toolbox, everything possible to mitigate that amount of damage, it should have some improved armor plating in order to minimize that damage and potentially cause a ricochet. I think it would really help the game, as overmatch is kind of a frustrating mechanic as this far on in the development cycle of World of Warships. And I really like to see Wargaming address that, because I think a lot of us cruiser players would really appreciate that. It would make games a little bit more fun, a little bit more dynamic, rather than carriers spotting cruisers early on in the game and them getting blapped off the face of the earth from a Yamato sitting across the other side of the map. Kind of that sort of thing, right? But not to get too far sidetracked, obviously, if you're newer to the channel, these Down the Line series it's basically a series of where I go through all the tech ships or tech line ships within a line, starting at tier 5. Obviously, this ship started at tier 6, so we started at tier 6. And I do in-depth reviews and analysis of each individual ship, go over some tips and tricks I had or found with the ship, go over the builds, obviously, and then go ahead and showcase some gameplay. And the gameplay is not cherry-picked, or at least I try not to be. It really just is supposed to highlight what the ship can do and what this ship is going to, like, basically its flaws, its pros, its cons, that sort of thing. That's really the main idea behind this series of videos. And I understand they don't get that many views, but that's okay. Maybe down the road someone comes across one of these videos, as this line is 2-3 years older, and if an older video that has a small amount of views can help anyone, hey, that's okay for me. So anyways, let's go on and get into the video, guys, and the review. So like we always do, we're going to go ahead and look at the armor scheme first. And as you can see, 27mm nose, 27mm ass, 30mm deck, and that 90mm of side plating there, or that armor belt. Going in and showcasing the Citadel. As you can see, we do have an above water Citadel. And again, we do have some sloped armor, but not as much as you think. These ships will 100% eat Citadel, so you have to be wary and careful about how much side profile you are showing. Now, the Manteuffel, along with this whole entire line, is a little bit of a mixed bag when it comes to its armor scheme. For one, the 27mm nose and 27mm ass, well, this is effective to preventing overmatch from 380mm guns. The problem is 406 or higher millimeter guns will go right through this and potentially citadel you from the front. This is a big weakness you see on a lot of high-tier German ships. Just to go through a couple that I have down here on the bottom, especially just at tier 9, the Siegfried, 27mm nose, no icebreaker. The Aegir, 27mm nose, no icebreaker. And obviously the sister ship to the Manteuffel, which is the Admiral Schroeder, we had in a dock year a couple years back, 27mm nose, no icebreaker. So this is a recurring theme you see within these ships. These ships like a more aggressive battle cruiser role, but yet they really can only shrug off 380mm guns from the nose. They really have no answer to anything 406mm or higher. So it's a big flaw and a big weakness in the armor scheme of these particular vessels. So if you are a battleship, 100% point and click on the nose of these ships. You should be getting really, really good damage, especially if you find yourself in those brawling-like situations. Sometimes it's not worth taking the gamble or the risk going for the Citadel. Maybe you just want to chunk a specific part of the ship that you know you can do raw, consistent damage, and maybe an ally can come and finish it off. Well, to look no further than the nose or the ass of these vessels, because you will do catastrophic damage to these ships. Now, going into the armor belt, I want to talk about this. 90mm is a very, very good armor threshold because it allows you to angle just right. And if a battleship player gets greedy, you can 100% angle and go ahead and deflect these shells and ricochet these shells if angled appropriately. The problem is if you slightly over angle and they go ahead and land in specific parts that aren't your 90, by here in this massive 27mm nose, for example, they could potentially go right through and citadel your ship, bypassing that that's kind of like spaced angled armor right here underneath the first barbette and go right into your Arth ship for a citadel ribbon to occur. So you're going to have to be careful of that as well. 30mm decks they're nice for that plunging fire to make sure that you don't get overmatched by what 406 is, but I believe that the Yamato 457s will go right through the 30 and potentially do massive penetration damage to your deck. So again, even those ships that are further out, that plunging fire can still be very detrimental to your ship. Again, armor-piercing bombs, we're looking at you, Richtofen, looking at you, Shinano, I guess, but that's more broadside. But anything with AP dive bombers, love this ship. These are going to fuse and detonate and potentially citadel you catastrophically. So you're going to have to be careful of those as well, because those are a big nuisance to your vessel. One last thing I do want to point out is we've seen this occurrence on a lot of these ships so far, but I do want to highlight, I'll go to the armor scheme, is this infamous, let me get a better view here, Jesus Christ. Okay, this infamous shell catcher on the back here. As you can see, it is considered 90 millimeters of armor, but it is pretty flat. So if you are kited away from the enemy and their AP shells land anywhere around this region, they will get full pens on your ship and do massive damage to your vessel. So you're going to have to be careful of that. I've had this happen to me a lot. I believe I was kited away from, I think, a 380 millimeter gun battleship. I can't remember exactly what it was. But he went ahead and landed the vast majority of his AP shells right there on that shell catcher, and that sent me packing to port pretty damn quick. I think I had around 12 to 14,000 HP remaining, which isn't a lot when you think about large caliber armor piercing shells coming your general direction. But since I was kited away, I was focused on my secondaries, not my main guns, and seeing the bigger picture. He went ahead and ate this right here and took me back to port. So keep that in mind. The Manteuffel definitely has a big problem when it comes to its shell catcher on the rear. These ships definitely like to push in. They can absolutely push out and kite out. I'm not saying you can't do that, but just be cautious about that shell catcher, because that is very much a thing, not only on this line, but especially on the Manteuffel. Okay. Going into the survivability of the ship, we are clocking in at 59,300 with a 22% torpedo reduction, protection, whatever reduction on this vessel. Not bad, not good. You have it at least, so that's good. I'm mostly looking at that for aerial torpedoes. Your big torpedo mitigation technique or tactic on the ship is going to be your hydroacoustic search. So make sure you sync that or synchronize that with your pushes so that you know and can see those torpedo volleys coming in at you from any which angle. My advice, you should have reconnaissance done already by your team, either in the form of DDs, submarines, or aircraft carriers, to spot the enemy destroyers. So you should know relatively where they are at. So make sure you plan your maneuvers accordingly and understand when and where there's a time to advance, when and when to turn around and kite and disengage as well. The biggest thing that I found that I really love in these ships is allied smoke screens. Or if your Essex, Yorktown, that kind of stuff drops you and deploys a smoke screen, you really do have a massive advantage, especially when you're manually controlling your secondaries or in your secondary range. These ships can dish out the pain very, very quickly to ships, and it is incredibly frustrating. So that is one thing that I absolutely love. I try to request smoke screens from my allies a lot, and when I'm playing an allied destroyer to these ships, I always make sure I try to ask them, hey, do you want a smoke screen? Can you help support the cap with your secondaries? Because they can and definitely will sway DD engagements in your favor if they can land their secondaries. And that's the big if. If your allies in these ships can land their secondaries effectively with manually controlling them, these ships are incredibly beneficial and helpful towards supporting allied destroyers. Okay, going into the artillery, we have 350 millimeter guns. Now, I do want to point out the Admiral Schroeder, the other ship that is like a sister ship to the Manteuffel, has only 305 millimeter guns, but very similar dispersion of the two ships. I believe the Manteuffel is rocking the 2.15 Sigma. The Admiral Schroeder is rocking the 2.05 Sigma. And the dispersion values are pretty much damn near identical. So I guess you could say that the main battery of the Manteuffel is a little bit more consistent. Consistent in this case, meaning if it's going to miss, it's going to miss more. If it's going to hit more in regards of that ellipse. So we could go with the consistency award going to the Manteuffel over the Schroeder, okay? But again, the Admiral Schroeder is just going to have better range, better reload, faster 180-degree turn time. The Admiral Schroeder, too, is also just going to have better automated secondaries than the Manteuffel. But again, the big caveat here is if you can control those secondaries and land them where you want them to land, the Manteuffel is going to have actually better hitting DPM than the Admiral Schroeder. But I do believe, too, on the contrary, the Admiral Schroeder does have more secondary baddies, especially in the form of the 128 millimeter guns. And again, I'll go in more into that here in a little bit once we talk about the secondaries. But right now, it's all about the main battery. The reload time of these 350 millimeter guns are 25 seconds. 180-degree turn time is 30 seconds. And again, your maximum range is only 17.6. I do want to point out, as you can see, as you've progressed up this tier, your main battery reload time has only gotten longer and longer and longer. This is hence influencing you and telling you that these ships are definitely more secondary focused, and that your actual main armament of the ship or of these ships is your secondary batteries, and your secondary batteries are actually your main battery guns. So don't conflict the two. It is very bass backwards when it comes to these ships, so make sure that you position yourself accordingly to make the most of that. Though obviously in the beginning of the game, I will talk a little bit more about like what I like to do depending on the map, depending on the spawn. I like to try to get up in the fray and get behind islands, not open water. These ships do not like open water, and it's very hard to make these ships work in open water, especially when 3, 4, 5, whatever, all the battleships in the game can point their guns directly at you and send you back to port quickly. Again, the big rule here is you are only just a cruiser, and you are still only a cruiser. You only have cruiser levels of armor, okay? Your high explosive cells are doing 4,000 damage a pop with a 27% fire chance, and they go ahead and get that quarter penetration rule for 88 millimeters of effective penetration. On the contrary, your 350 millimeter AP shells are doing 10,500. Both are matching each other in the initial shell velocity of 815 meters a second. Now, I do want to point out these guns might be reliable, but I am finding with the characteristics of the AP shells, I am finding that you do more often than not score a lot of overpens with these, but then every now and then the stars will align and you'll get like 2 or 3 citadels in a row. Okay, I don't understand how or why that works that way. Obviously, I just posted a short to my channel the other day highlighting what I did to a Janan, absolutely bending him over with a double or triple citadel or whatever it was. I think it was a triple citadel. The guns do work, but they don't work all the time. So that's why I'm saying you want to rely more on your secondary batteries at time and wait till those ships disengage, because most likely they will. When you're spamming them with your manually controlling of your secondaries, these ships will disengage or try to get all their main battery guns to bear on you. When they do that, switch back to your main battery, and that is when you go ahead and shoot and punish. You have to think about these guns more like a battleship salvo than cruiser DPM salvos, okay? Going into your secondaries, you do have the 3x2 150s and the 9x2 128 millimeter guns. I believe the maximum range of these secondaries base, you're getting to 8.6, and I know for a fact, I think the automated go to 12 and the manuals go to 13, if I'm not mistaken, which is a whole kilometer of range if you could control your main battery effectively. Though I've already talked about this on my channel as well. I wouldn't recommend trying to manually shoot destroyers at 12 and 13 kilometers, especially if they're like Klebers, Habaros, those really, really fast, nimble destroyers, because you're not going to hit anything. And a matter of fact, you might as well leave it to your automated secondaries to try to hit a couple shells at that point, because you're not reliably going to land shells on the target. But again, anything under 10 kilometers, 9, 8, absolutely you should be switching to your manual control of your secondaries and dishing out the pain quicker and dishing out more damage over time and having a greater chance of actually hitting them as you're the one in control of them. Just make sure you lead appropriately and hope that your secondaries with a 1.0 Sigma land where you want them to land, okay? One thing I've never really talked about, maybe I did mention this way early on, like in the Deutschland review. One thing you can do with these ships too is if a DD smokes up, let's say for example a Groningen or a Kitakaze or ships like that, if they decide to smoke up and say, I'm going to farm this son of a bitch because he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's doing, he can't hit me anymore, you can control your secondaries manually and absolutely just blister of fire down on their smoke screen, and you can actually reliably hit them too, because your secondaries are going all over the place and you're not locked on a target, which means they're going to be going all over the place and you have a higher chance of actually hitting the damn target or DD in smoke. It is a tactic that I've utilized, and I've actually gotten kills before this way. I've set fires, done incapacitations, and actually have stopped DDs from shooting in their smoke screen because they're getting frustrated that I'm hitting them. Okay, definitely take use of this tactic and utilize this strategy because it will help you in the fray, okay? The ship does have torpedoes, 9.5 kilometers, a torpedo per broadside. These are the 2x4 533 millimeter torpedoes, reloading in about 110 seconds. They have a maximum damage of 14,400, 65 knots, the detectability range of 1.3 kilometers, giving the enemy ship a reaction time of about 7.5 seconds to react to these torpedoes. These torpedoes can be used in brawling-like situations, but I actually try to utilize them more in like throwing them in a general area, turning around, and hopefully those ships land on target. But then again, you want to be careful you don't launch your torps too early if you are knowingly going to be going into a brawling-like situation, because it's way easier for enemy ships to dodge and maneuver around your torpedoes. So I would wait more so you're around the point blank range to go ahead and launch those torpedoes off and get the most out of them and hopefully get a couple damaging hits on the enemy. Again, as you can see, these torpedoes are mounted on the deck, which means they are very susceptible to getting knocked out and incapacitations. There's no armor protecting them like you see like on the Zao, for example. So keep that in mind as well, because you might be slightly opening up broadside to launch your torpedo volley, and then lo and behold, a lone secondary battery shot knocks them out. It has happened. It happens a lot. So keep that in mind. AA defense of the Manteuffel. Okay. I was under the impression that because you're taking in the, 6 upgrade slot, that AA secondary battery mod 3, your AA is going to be a little bit better. And it's going to be a little bit better where you're going to be able to shoot down enemy aircraft and maybe they would stay away from you. And I was wrong. Was not right about this whatsoever. Even tier 8 aircraft carriers still bend me over and have their way with me. I don't know why this happens, but the AA value is nothing to rely on. I thought I was going to be able to be a lone wolf at times, go on the flanks, excuse me, and be able to handle myself. Wrong. Can't do that. You're going to have to push with your allies, and you can't be a lone target because you will get sent back to port really, really quick. So again, the AA, I was telling you, the AA is supposed to get better. Really doesn't get better, guys. So keep that in mind. The maneuverability of the ship. And this is something I definitely want to talk a lot about. Obviously, your speed is 32.5 knots. Not bad. Your turning circle radius stock or base is 840 meters with a 13.6 second rudder shift. Now, as you can see on your screen, mine is 8.2, okay? Mine is 8.2 because I dropped the concealment in the 5th slot, and I actually take, I believe it's the, the double steering gears modification 2. I take the steering gears modification 2, okay? But that being said, on my commander, I take concealment expert, which gives me a 13 kilometer detection on this ship. I don't think you need any less. I tried playing less. I actually found myself dying faster with less concealment on this ship. But now, because my maneuverability and I can turn with my rudder shift time being 8.2 and not 13.6, I'm actually finding myself dodging a lot of shells, dodging a lot of incoming torpedo salvos, actually dodging aircraft, just dodge, by the way. It just, for me, it's a better upgrade to take in that slot, and I'm getting more out of her now and pushing her to her limits rather than before having to rely on my armor to shrug off the large caliber armor piercing salvos like I told you, which was not boding well for me. Okay, if you are struggling in these ships, especially at the Manteuffel, and again, probably most likely for the Prinz Ad, I would highly recommend you drop your concealment module in the slot 5 and you go ahead and take that double rudder shift mod or steering gears mod 2. It's going to help your ship considerably in regards of getting into those pushing like scenarios and secondary situations. Okay, and I will show examples of that too. And again, with no commander, no upgrade, it's 14.5 with the commander on the ship, which obviously I don't have yet, son of a bitch. You actually can get it down to about 13 kilometers, I believe, or just slightly above like 13.2 or something like that, which is fine. It's fine. It's perfect. And I would utilize that a lot, guys. I would 100% utilize that a lot. Obviously, I'm trying to train like different commanders up. I have a 21-point commander I bounce on this ship just for the review process, to kind of show you what it's like to get a 21-point commander. So with the concealment value as where it was, I was able to make the ship work a lot. The commander I'm trying now, which is my commander for the vessel, I don't have concealment expert yet, but when I go ahead and I take that concealment expert, it will bring them down to 13 kilometers, which is going to be huge for me. And then for this ship, I'm actually going to be taking incoming fire alert as well. So when I'm controlling my secondaries manually, I can see if an enemy salvo is incoming and I can maneuver appropriately and accordingly to dodge, or hopefully dodge, that incoming AP salvo. Okay. All right, guys, so that's basically the Manteuffel in a nutshell. I know there was a lot to talk about here. I know this was a lengthy kind of port analysis section of this ship. But I believe it was very important to talk about this ship in port because this is going to set the stage not only for the gameplay now, but also the Prince Ad when I talk about that ship in a separate video. So without further ado, guys, let's go on and check out the gameplay I had in the Manteuffel. Alrighty guys, and here we are in battle with the Manteuffel, and here on your screen is just a little bit of a refresher of the builds and corresponding upgrades I have taken on this ship. This was a great game. This is actually my first phenomenal game. So if you want to say, Waffle, I thought you said you don't cherry pick, this might be the one game I kind of cherry picked. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I was impressed that I actually did this in this game. So again, this is not what you will normally have. What you will normally have is probably what I had the last 20 games, which is maybe reaching the highest damaging game I had was like 140 to 160,000 damage. And I exceeded that quite considerably in this particular game. And that's why I wanted to showcase it, because it showcases what these ships can do. This game wasn't an E rank, and the only reason it wasn't an E rank was, sadly, spoiler alert, we lost. But if we would have won, I do think this would have been up there and acceptable for the badge of the E rank, for the efficiency badge. Not that that really matters. Honestly, sometimes people just get efficiency badges. I've said this before, by the way, based upon how their team does, how the enemy team does. The stars kind of align, and you get base XP. The highest base XP or whatever for this certain ship. So again, it's not like the most accurate about how good the player is in regards to that particular ship. There's definitely some wiggle room to be had, right? Okay, so anyways, getting back to the gameplay, obviously we're just waiting and buying time until the battle actually starts. I've talked a lot about these ships, and I'm starting to sound a little bit redundant when it comes to how the overall playstyle of these ships kind of works. What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? Obviously, the big glaring strength of this ship is the secondary battery. I shouldn't really have to mention that anymore. But the weaknesses, the big weakness for me was that, like, at the end of the day, no matter what people say about how tanky this armor is, you still only have cruiser levels of armor, and I already went over the armor scheme in port. The big weakness of these ships, you just have this massive 27mm nose that's found on like the Aegir, the Schroeder, the Siegfried. All these similar types of ships just have this massive nose that you really can't do anything about, that basically is just a free farming damage area, whatever you want to say, of the ship. So you just have to understand and try to mitigate that the best you possibly can. And understand that going nose in or directly nose in is probably not the play all the time. You want to try to bait enemy ships and shooting that 90mm section of your side plating, or they're just going to get raw pen damage, as you're going to see. So here's an example of me kiting out, and fortunately for me, the the Schlieffen hit my my belt armor, my side armor, not my shell catcher. And I'm sorry for the audio in the background. Someone was calling me on Discord that really shouldn't have been calling me, and that is why there is no audio for a little section here. So don't check your phone, don't check your computer. That is not your fault. That is on me, and I really didn't want to re-record this, so kind of a lazy sack of shit. What can I say? Anyways, though, with that being said, we are able to end up taking down the Schlieffen with the help of our team. We still, what did we score? Like 55 secondary hits. But again, we took quite a beating from the Schlieffen because we were starting to get focused by a bunch of other ships, including the Sorky out to the right, the Ultrex bombs, which did a massive amount of damage, as you saw. That was very frustrating. Everyone loves getting Dutch airstriked, that's for sure. And then obviously the Schlieffen secondary. So again, trying to reiterate, your armor levels are only equivalent to that of a cruiser. So treat this thing like a cruiser. Don't think you're some heavily armored battleship or heavily armored cruiser, because you're really not, okay? The only thing heavily armored about this ship, in my opinion, is that 90mm side section, which again is a double-edged sword, because if you angle it right, you will ricochet all your shells. If you don't if you don't angle it right, you will eat nothing but penetration. So again, it's one of those double-edged sword things you're gonna have to account for, right? Okay. So going into more about the ship that I didn't mention or anything about is the consumables of this vessel. Now, obviously, you have your fast-acting damage control team. You only have 4 charges base, action time of 10 seconds, and the cooldown time of 40 seconds. Obviously, Superintendent is a must for these ships, as it's going to increase all your consumables by 1. Okay. You also have access to a heal. The heal is pretty standard. You only have 3 charges base, 28 seconds, 297 HP per second, and what's that? Cooldowns for about 80 seconds. And then you have your 6-kilometer hydroacoustic surge, which is awesome. And as you saw in the upgrades earlier on in the video, I do actually recommend taking the hydroacoustics mod in the second slot, as it's going to extend the duration of your hydroacoustic surge, which is super nice. Allows you to be a little more aggressive for a little bit longer and mitigate a massive weakness of the ship, which is torpedoes. If the ship's hydro is down, these ships will eat more torpedoes than not. Okay. And I would know. Also, if you choose to take concealment module in the 5th slot instead of that steering gears mod 2, you will eat even more torpedoes because dodging is going to be that much harder. I'm telling you, the biggest change that I had, or that change that I had in regards of taking that rather than the concealment, was like the greatest thing possible for me with these ships, because it allowed me and elevated my gameplay to the next level. And that's what you're seeing here. I believe this was the first or second game after I made that adjustment that I ended up getting a game like this, which was incredible. Now you can see that the only reason I'm being aggressive here is because we eliminated the enemy battleship on this flank. But I still don't want to go ahead and charge the Ultrek, because the Ultrek's just going to frickin' nuke me, not only with his HE, but his continuous bomb drops, because the enemy destroyers are going to continuously spot me, and it would be a death situation. So that's why I'm not continuously going to be pushing these ships. You have to pick your spots, and thank God my ally here dropped a nice smoke screen for me, so I can go ahead and get in that and disengage. Now, we all get frustrated from the Dutch airstrikes. I think we all can agree on that. I think they're fun to play because everyone knows they're trolly as fuck and borderline broken, but they are incredibly frustrating to play against, right? So in this situation that we end up spotting the Ultrek, I'm going to show you what happens when the stars align with your main guns. People like to trash the main guns, and I might be one of those ships, but I did mention in my review, and in the port analysis, excuse me, I did say that every now and then your guns will wake the fuck up and the stars will align and you will have that like beautiful dispersion on the target. Okay. This is going to be one of those situations that we're going to actually have that beautiful dispersion on target. Though I might be a little bit early commentating on it, it's going to happen. And when it happens, it is going to be a chef's kiss, ladies and gentlemen, a chef's kiss. And we all love when we have salvos like this, because it really does allow us to believe that the main battery guns aren't as bad as we all think they are, okay? It just goes to show you that this is a game of RNG. It just depends. Like all the numbers, it just comes down to, well, how consistent is your RNG? Are you more heavily reliant on the random number generator, or do your numbers favor a more consistent outcome? And this salvo right here, as we pinpoint, he's at the edge of the map. We pinpointed his turnout, and we shoot, and we end up getting a pretty damn good result with our triple citadel death strike. I wanted to highlight that because I think I was absolutely yelling at my monitor when that happened, freaking out, and yeah, it was pretty funny stuff there. So we were able to accomplish that and get that done. Just thank God. That is so fucking incredibly annoying. So again, just wanted to showcase that every now and then the stars do align with this ship. So going more into the vessel, some more tips and tricks I have of the ship is when you're utilizing your secondary battery, you don't need to go flat broadside and utilize all your secondary battery. Okay, now notice now I'm actually facing more of like a 60-70 degree angle, trying to shoot a little bit more. Obviously there's an island I have to dodge it around, but I fired my secondaries, was getting some consistent hits there on that was at a club air, but now I've actually opted to just having my auto secondaries go ahead and take over, because I wasn't getting the amount of damage I wanted to get from the secondaries, that I wasn't landing enough shells to justify getting that the meaty hit. Obviously this is a great scenario. I noticed that the ocean drops a smoke screen to provide lack of vision for his allied destroyers. That's why he did that. Okay, obviously he should have moved 3, 4, 5 minutes ago, but I digress. So I'm just going to hop in his smoke screen, take it, say thank you, and I'm going to go au revoir to this guy and just continuously fire my secondaries at his last known location and whoever's spotting him, because that's what I can do. I can absolutely melt him with my secondaries. Are you seeing this? I'm going to thank you for his smoke screen, and we're going to go ahead and take that kill. Now, obviously, we want to make sure we keep the right, we don't want to just sit and smoke. Obviously, we have the hydroacoustic search, which is going to allow us to be a little bit more aggressive and see those incoming torpedoes. But we're still losing this game. I want to make sure we take the fight to the enemy at this point. Obviously, where he's at, I'm not going to control my secondaries. I'm going to allow my automated secondaries to take as control. Obviously, it's a Zorky with those 8 130mm guns. I'm going to want to angle out as fast as possible and disengage from this guy and let him continuously sail towards the back of spawn, because it's not worth chasing him all the way back there just to get a kill. I think that it's more impactful that I go back and support my allies in B. Obviously, the only reason I switched to my manual secondaries is because my automated secondaries can't reach out that far. So it's the only reason I switched, guys. I want to seem like I'm conflicting what I'm saying. Obviously, when they're at ranges, I'll just fire a couple more salvos and just spray and pray and hopefully get some hits. But again, I wouldn't continuously rely on my manual secondaries at that range, because I don't trust myself to land shells on the target. So going back here, I believe I was talking to my ally and saying, hey, Eagle, I'm going to need a smoke screen around this area because I'm going to take the fight to the Libertad. The Libertad is touted to having a phenomenal secondary battery. Also, he is coated with 234mm secondary mounts, which can completely full pen me everywhere. So if I'm going to engage him, he can't see me, or will have to not be able to see me in order to take him mano a mano, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And I think it's a strategy. These ships really do play well with allies who can drop their smoke screens. I've already mentioned this in the port screen. And it's no different from ships like the Schlieffen or Prinz Ruprecht and ships like that. I think that kind of started off the trend, especially because those ships came out, I believe, right before or right after. I think it was right before the Essex line that was able to drop aerial smoke screens. So you saw a lot of those smoke trailing meme divisions, and again, now with a cruiser version of that line, that really allows you to be a little bit more flexible, not be as bulky and as big, and dish out a lot of pain and control the secondaries where they're going. If I can pinpoint the Libertad's superstructure here and start landing consistent shells on his superstructure, that means, or in correlation, I'm going to be doing more damage in general. Now, obviously, I didn't think he was going to be detecting me through the smoke screen, but I forgot, obviously, there are destroyers to my right that probably have spotted me in my smoke screen, but I'm not 100% sure. It could have been the Libertad too, not 100%, but we're going to go ahead and angle in slightly to make use of our 90mm belt. There it is. That's a perfect example of utilizing our 90mm belt effectively. So make sure you stay at those angles and you can get those auto ricochet bounce pretty damn effectively if you angle appropriately, okay? Obviously, he doesn't understand that if he doesn't shoot his main guns in smoke, he will be undetected. That's okay. Where automated secondaries can't shoot in smoke, I can, because they're manual, and I'm just going to keep shooting him in smoke so he realizes what's the point of staying dark when this guy is going to continuously spam me with the secondaries in smoke. So he went ahead and sailed out, which is exactly what I wanted him to do. And our ally goes ahead and hits him with a torpedo, which is awesome, which makes him flooding. So he's in a bit of a panic mode. And we're just going to go ahead and continuously dump a bunch of HE loads on his superstructure. As you can see, the damage does definitely rack up, and the consistency of the secondary shells landing on target adds up as well. Now, these secondaries do have a great fire chance. I believe you are rocking with the Manteuffel about 341 shells per minute, which is correlating to about 19.5 fires a minute as well, with a 5 to 8% chance of fire, or setting chance of fire on target. And I believe I take demo experts, so it's only boosting that to 6 and to 9, which is huge, right? But yeah, we're going to continuously go ahead and shoot some more secondaries out on the Zorky. We're actually going to go ahead and open up with our main battery too, which I don't know really was the play, because I completely forgot to account for the Vallejo, which is out there as well, which, I'll tip my hat to the Vallejo player. Not only is he playing that ship pretty damn good, but he's also managed to keep a lot of his spotter plane gimmicks in reserve, which I believe he gets like 6 or 7 base or something like that, and it's allowing him to farm at those ranges, which are quite steep and quite far away for me to consistently land. So he's easily going to be maneuvering against my 6 350 millimeter shells. Now, obviously, I'm sweating because I know I'm going to have to engage this Jacksonville. And as you know, the Jacksonville's gimmick is going to be hugely detrimental towards me. Plus, it's just, 152 millimeter guns. I'm not liking this. I'm not liking my odds here, and I think I'm going to die quickly. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go out fighting. I'm going to go out swinging against this guy. And I'm going to go ahead and start in the pre-kited position and get ready to unleash upon this man. Now, obviously, he does radar me, which is, I guess not ideal, but again, he sailed behind the island. So again, it's really not too big of a deal because now I know where he's at. He knows where I'm at. He's not going to get a first value salvo. He's going to come out broadside because I guess he just laughs at my guns, doesn't think he's going to do much damage, and we go ahead and sit it down massively. And we switch to our secondaries here. Obviously, Adrenaline Rush is kicking in. And a side note, if you have Gunther Luchins on this ship or the Prinz Ad, I only tip my hat to you because I can only imagine the amount of HE secondary pain you can dish out. But yeah, I went ahead, I smacked him with my main battery, and I've been smacking him with my secondaries, and basically a full health Jacksonville is only holding on by about, sub 10k now? That's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know how these super ship players just managed to piss away all their ship's HP, but wow. We go ahead and get that salvo over the island, and we actually end up citadeling him again and picking up the kill. It was incredible. Incredible. I was freaking out. I was like, oh my god, there is a chance. There is a chance. But the sad reality is, as you can see in your top screen, the numbers are flipped. I don't know, it's like a bug or something. We have 730, they have 942. It's not looking good here. I'd have to close the distance, and potentially my ally would have to get a lucky torpedo hit on the enemy destroyer to really win the game. Also, a side note, their Kearsarge is just playing aircraft carrier because I haven't seen the guy once, so that's always great to see. How many of you guys have always been on a team where a hybrid ship is just literally using his aircraft and nothing but his aircraft? It's so incredibly frustrating. It's not like the guy doesn't have 12 406 millimeter guns or anything. So, but yeah, so the Vallejo obviously has a spotter plane up. He's going to go ahead and pop that and kite out. And at this point, there's really nothing I can do. I have to close the distance to just hope and try at winning this game. But I'm not going to hit his Zork at max range. And nor hell am I ever going to win against a Vallejo at this range unless he's an idiot. So he's going to land all of his shells too. He had his spotter plane banked up here for late game. And at this point in time, the game is pretty much over, especially with this next salvo, as I'm going to be burning and I die. Oh, sorry, one more salvo. I thought that was the next one I was going to be gone. So, but yeah, overall, awesome game for me. I don't want to pat myself too hard on the back here, but that was a really fun game to play. Like, those are the games I really love and live for when we play this game. So, obviously here with the post screen here, we have 217,000 damage, 4 kills, 6 citadels, 7 incapacitations, 9 fires, only 1 spotted, not really spotting, known for spotting on this ship, 43 shell hits, 375 secondary battery hits, 22 planes shot down, 3 defended ribbons with the 1 assisted to capture. We did pick up some divisional achievements there, Confederate, Dev Strike, secondary battery expert or whatever, and the high caliber achievement as well, guys. All in all, really good game. Cannot stress this enough. These ships are certainly capable, right? These ships are definitely capable, and go ahead and get 2,300 and something base XP. Again, probably enough for an E rank, but we lost the game. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.